I'm Speaker Lisa Damath, here to talk affordability with you today. Conversation for Minnesota. When we talk about affordability, we look at it as a crisis here in Minnesota, and what Minnesotans are facing and what House Republicans are actually doing to try to help drive down the costs and put more money back into our family budgets. Minnesotans are feeling the squeeze. When you think groceries, childcare, housing, insurance, energy bills, everything keeps rising and family budgets are stretched thinner every month. Families are working harder just to keep up with the basic costs of living. At kitchen tables and in homes across the state, Minnesota families are asking the same question: why does everything feel so expensive now? During the Democrat trifecta, I want you to remember with me that we had an $18 billion surplus that was completely spent. Our taxes here in Minnesota were raised another $10 billion, meaning that government spending grew 40%. There were piled on hidden costs like retail delivery fees, a new payroll tax and paid family medical leave, and massive unfunded mandates on local governments that would drive up property taxes, as we're all seeing. The result has been, as we said, predictable. Minnesota has become a more expensive place to live. It's more expensive to raise a family and to run a business, and too many families feel like they're falling further behind. This year, though, they're back to advocating for millions of new taxes and even more mandates. And when I say they, our Democrat colleagues, as we've been trying to bring costs down, we are seeing increased provisions of Democrats. Here's a few of them. Democrats so far have proposed more than a dozen new health care mandates that would drive up the cost of health care. At the same time, though, they were voting down common sense conformity, that work requirements for able-bodied adults and more frequent eligibility checks to cut down on fraud and ensure dollars go to those who need them most. Those are things that are being voted down. Democrats have opposed reforms to paid family medical leave, even though we're already seeing cities, school districts, and small businesses struggling under the weight of that mandate with the cost and trying to find employees to cover those times other employees are out. Democrats have proposed a new massive climate super fund that would drive energy costs up. We will have a bill that'll be introduced soon that would actually save ratepayers at least $373 million each year. Democrats have opposed bills that would eliminate tax on tips and overtime for Minnesota workers who desperately need it. House Republicans understand the pressure that families are under. And our focus is simple. Let's lower taxes here in Minnesota for families. Let's cut the mandates so businesses can grow and prosper, and property taxes can come down. We want to strengthen our economy and make Minnesota affordable again so families can keep more of what they earn. So now is an opportunity, as we are nearing our first and second deadline and nearing the finish, even if it doesn't feel like it's that close, we are nearing the finish. We're looking forward to May, but now is the opportunity for Democrats to show that same commitment to Minnesota families. So with those deadlines coming up, it's time to act now and get the bills through so that they can be processed and get to the governor for his signature. We saw back in 2024 a very large bill on the last night of session, over 1,400 pages. You are not going to see that come through the House chamber this year at all. What you will see is individual proposals, some of what I've alluded to here, specific proposals moving through on an individual basis that can be passed out of committee, sent to the General Register, calendared for the House floor, and passed so they can get to the governor. That's what you will see. That is what Minnesotans wanted. That's what Minnesotans want. And we look forward to doing that work with our Democrat colleagues. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leader Harry Niska for additional comments, and then we'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Speaker Demuth. As Speaker Demuth said, House Republicans have dozens of proposals to drive down costs for struggling Minnesota families. To lower health care costs, we have proposed several items, making the reinsurance program permanent. We're working to expand direct primary care to give families more health care options. And we have proposed requiring the state to cover the cost of new health care mandates like Democrats have pushed forward that are raising health care costs. To address property tax increases, we want to allow schools and local governments to opt out of the costly mandates, the unfunded mandates that Democrats have passed on to them. And we want to create a property tax commission focused on lowering property taxes. To put more money back in Minnesotans' pockets, we want to, we have proposed eliminating taxes on tips and overtime, conforming with the federal law on that, repealing the delivery fee, the retail delivery fee, ending the Social Security tax, lowering car tab and boat fees, and returning a portion of future surpluses to taxpayers. House Republicans' goal is simple: make Minnesota affordable so hard work pays off. Now, because it's an election year, we see from Democrats that they're trying to rebrand themselves as the party of affordability. Minnesotans can see through it. Their record, their actions, and their words tell a different story. And you can just look at the words and actions of the last couple of weeks alone, where House Democrats have called exempting taxes on tips and overtime a, quote, expensive gimmick. They've suggested that car tab fees, which they already increased massively when they had a trifecta, should be quintupled. That's multiplied by 5 times. They've introduced so-called climate superfund legislation, which is a massive new energy tax on every Minnesotan that will drive energy prices and, frankly, prices of everything through the roof. And they've said that we can't cut taxes because that would handcuff our budget. Democrats have supported, defended, and refused to repeal the dozens of unfunded mandates and cost shifts that they've placed on schools, counties, and local governments that have driven every Minnesotan's property taxes through the roof. And Democrats are just not serious about making Minnesota affordable. Look at their actions, the bills they have introduced, the way they've governed when they had a trifecta, and the way they talk about taxes. It's clear Democrats believe that Minnesota government is entitled to more and more of Minnesotans' hard-earned money. House Republicans, on the other hand, believe families should keep more of what they earn, that we should lower costs, reduce the tax burden, and make Minnesota affordable again. So we're challenging Democrats to act now. Make Minnesota more affordable. Work with us to lower the cost of energy. Work with us to lower the cost of groceries. Work with us to lower the cost of health care. Work with us to lower the cost of Minnesota government. Time is running out before deadlines, and in a tied House, getting bills moving after deadline would be incredibly difficult. This is not going to be like past years where dozens and dozens of bills get thrown in to a 1,400-page omnibus bill at the end of session. Bills have to be, as Speaker Demuth said, passed and considered on their own merits, and we expect Democrats are going to work with us on finding bills that have bipartisan support and getting them moving. So we're happy to take questions.
When you talk about affordability, to what extent do you blame or hold the Trump administration accountable for any of the economic conditions that are currently in place?
Well, certainly the massive reduction in energy costs that have come as a result of changes in national energy policy have made a big difference in terms of a lot of Minnesotans' price at the pump, for example. We have seen a hopefully temporary spike in that because of international conditions as a result of what's happening in Iran and the oil shocks in the Strait of Hormuz. But obviously there are things that are outside of our control here in the state of Minnesota. There are a lot of things within the control of the state government, whether it's unfunded mandates that are driving up property taxes, whether it's the energy costs that are going up on Minnesotans because of Democrats' misguided energy policy from the trifecta banning most of the sources of energy that we as Minnesotans rely upon. The other trying to follow California's car policies that are also driving up energy costs in Minnesota. So obviously, it's a very complicated situation that we have to deal with as state policymakers with things that are outside of our control.
How high of a priority is going to be conforming to the no taxes on tips and overtime? Of all your priorities, where does that rank?
Well, lowering taxes on Minnesotans is one of our top priorities, and how that looks, obviously, you know, Democrats say they're for people who are earning wage income. That's one of their big talking points. They want to punish, you know, business owners, but they say they're for people who are earning wage income. It's frankly kind of surprising to me that cutting taxes on tips and overtime isn't something that's a bipartisan priority.
How high of a priority is it for your caucus?
Well, I think lowering taxes on every Minnesotan is a high priority for our caucus, and whatever that looks like, we're willing to work with Democrats on whatever ways they might be interested in cutting taxes on Minnesotans.
No tax on tips and overtime, Democrats will point to the universe of people that it covers, saying it's, you know, I think on tips, it might be 3% of Minnesotans. Overtime, I believe, is a little bit higher than that. So they would say, you know, a better way to cut taxes would be, you know, capturing more taxpayers or adding more to the child tax credit, which, you know, applies to every family, all those sorts of things. So what is your argument for these groups of people getting that tax cut compared to others who might not see the benefit but might make the same amount of money on paper?
Well, I think when we look at it, this is something that would just take a simple federal conformity. And so it's something that people are already feeling relief at the federal level, so why wouldn't we do that? With the small amount of, I hesitate to say the word, the budget forecast, surplus, please don't misunderstand that. We have a very temporary amount of dollars that make it not quite as bad as we thought it was going to be, with the $3 billion that are left over. These are things we could provide, but as Leader Niska said, you heard him talk about lowering the car tab fees and lowering some of those things that have been increased during the time of the Democrat trifecta. Those are things we could be doing. We are willing to work with our Democrat colleagues. Obviously, we have a tie in the House. It's going to take that work together. But when bills are being stalled or not making their way through committee, bills that would actually provide some relief to Minnesotans, those are the things we really want to work on. So no tax on tips, lowering some of those things. We definitely want to look at that. We have a list of bills here of things both that have been heard, but have maybe not made it through. You know, we're looking at different things that maybe haven't even made their way through, but requiring a cost of frail for new healthcare mandates, you know, that would take the cost of healthcare down a little bit. Property tax commission to lower property taxes. Again, the no tax on tips. Repealing the retail delivery fee that was put in 2023. Ending the tax on Social Security. These are things that we could get done. They should have been done during the time of the surplus. They weren't, and so this is our opportunity to fix things and make things more affordable for Minnesotans across the board, Minnesota families included.
But no tax on tips costs and
$126 million.
But the two together, it's close to $500 million.
Possibly.
Is that a concern, and would you be willing to scale back the proposal to maybe meet some budgetary concerns?
We will definitely look at all of it right now. Those are things we should be conforming to, and we need Democrats to join us. We have 68 members. I wish we did. We have 67 members. They have 67 members. It is going to take us coming together and making decisions. As you saw last year, we were able to do that. There is no reason why Democrats and Republicans can't come together on more affordability here in the state of Minnesota.
Different approach, bills going separately, no more mega bills, how you're talking about the clock running out already, you haven't even left for break yet.
No, I think what we are seeing, you know, and I'll use the OIG bill, Mary, as an example. We saw an OIG bill pass nearly unanimously in the Senate last year. That same bill we're trying to get through, and Democrats in the House are purposefully delaying things. Either holding things up in committee, won't do an urgency. And so I am not concerned about the clock running out, other than the fact that it seems like the Democrats in the House are choosing a delay tactic on many, many things. You will not see a 1,400-page, everything pushed together bill at the end of the year. There's no reason with the time left that we can't hear bills on an individual basis. The gavels are traveling, Democrat and Republican, just like they did last year, alternating committees. There's no reason why we could not have a floor full of votes right now on bills that either are waiting or could be passed through committee.
Can you tell us about the bill you talked about regarding future surpluses and automatically sending that back to taxpayers?
You know, I'll get back to you on that specific bill. I don't have that right at my fingertips.
That is something
That
that
we'd
you're
like to
looking
consider.
at, some
Yeah.
mechanism to do that.
For sure, yep. I did want to add, just on Mary's last question, we are seeing what looks like a deliberate strategy by House Democrats of bottling up bills for no reason other than, for no good policy reason, for no reason other than to try to create some sort of, we think, grand bargaining chip at the end of session. We saw, for example, today, a pass-through entity tax, an extension of that pass-through entity tax, which does nothing other than help Minnesota small businesses, our job creators in Minnesota, avoid more federal taxes by avoiding the limitations on the state and local tax exemption. It cost Minnesota literally $0 to do this, and Democrats voted in lockstep to harm Minnesota small businesses in their tax in their current tax year that Minnesota small businesses need to pay in. Just as a bargaining chip. And so we're really concerned that House Democrats think that there is some sort of massive omnibus bill, and we're hearing that from Senate Democrats too, that there's going to be some sort of, that House Republicans are going to go along with what they did 2 years ago with some, 1,400-page bill at the end of session. That is absolutely not going to happen.
The advantage, you are the speaker. There's no other speaker. Is there anything you can do on the floor to push that advantage?
As far as being speaker, we need the bills to come to the floor. In order for them to even get calendared, they have to make it through rules. But if the bills are going to make it to rules, we have to get them out of committee. And you're watching as things are dying on a tie, bills that should be able to be passed. We need bills moved through committee. They need to make it to the general register. They need to get to rules to be calendared, and then let's take a vote. If Democrats want to vote down affordability measures, then do it on the House floor. Don't delay, just let people know where you're at. It appears in committees and in conversations that Democrats are not serious about making things more affordable for Minnesotans. Republicans and across the board, we are serious about trying to make things more affordable. This is after digging out what we just saw in 23 and 24 of an overspending of state government. This was predictable. We knew this. We had talked about it. Here we are. We're ready to partner together with those in the House in our tie and get the work done.
Are you guys going to look for spending cuts or potential new revenue to maybe backfill some of the price tags associated with these?
So a couple of things. What I will tell you is if we need to find new revenue. Now, one of the things that is of top of mind is a systems modernization with DHS, with our counties. We know that we need that. That has been talked about for years. In order to afford that, we obviously have a small amount of dollars that we could be looking at right now with this. What is off the table is any tax increases to Minnesota families. We are not increasing taxes, even though we have heard that there's some concern from the DFL that maybe they want to actually do that.
On property taxes, I heard you mention a commission to look at that. It seems like the Democrats want to do that too, at least in the House. What I didn't hear is what the Senate Republicans have offered, which is a cap on property taxes, like I think it's to the rate of inflation plus 50%, depending on your size of your city. Is there room for doing more deliberate action on property taxes, or do you think it's more incumbent on doing what you suggest, study the issue before you make any sort of changes?
Yeah, no, we're open to all that. We know especially, we've heard from our folks in all of our districts how what the sticker shock is with the massive increase in property taxes. That's why we're so focused on trying to find some way to get some money back in Minnesotans' pockets, because we know that they've been hit especially hard with these massive property tax increases this year.
But not necessarily doing anything on capping that this year.
I think we're open to, anything like that that's going to soften that blow on Minnesota families for sure.
For the last several weeks, members of the Minnesota community have been here testifying about how they've been having trouble, affording rent, making payroll for their businesses. People representing higher ed were here talking about economic impacts. all sort of based on their experiences with the federal immigration surge for the last few months. And so I'm wondering how that factors into your thinking around affordability for Minnesotans. And, you know, testifiers were not just from the Twin Cities, but also from greater Minnesota.
Yeah, so anything that's focused on trying to improve the overall economic climate of businesses for those struggling businesses, we're open to. Anything that's, dealing with trying to get money back in the pockets of hardworking Minnesota families to deal with the rise in property taxes, the rise in all their costs that they've had to deal with, we're open to. In terms of, something that's specifically a bailout to businesses or folks who chose to, stay at home or not to do a general strike, which the DFL party promoted. Obviously people's actions have consequences. We're not really interested in a bailout along those lines.
Is there anything like under the radar that you think really has a chance of passing? Because obviously you'll have two different visions with the Tide House, but anything like that people aren't talking about that you think might have a chance?
Well, Speaker Demuth mentioned the upgrades of the computer systems. I think broadly people understand that we have, as a state, not invested in the systems that are needed to prevent fraud, that are needed to allow our workers who administer our social services programs to do that in an efficient way. House Republicans have been fighting for that. We had to work very hard in negotiations last year just to get some basic money to go to counties in order to do that. We're hearing acknowledgement from the governor and from Democrats now that they agree with that, and so we are optimistic that there will be some ability to do some investment in that infrastructure. It's going to reduce our need. It's going to make those systems a lot more efficient. It's going to allow us to catch fraud, I think, a lot better than what's happened in the past. So I do think I am hopeful that we'll be able to find some agreement on that.
You both said no more tax increases. Does that mean Representative Mary Franzen's bill on a new tax for beverages, plastic beverages, is not?
The outlook for that bill in the House is not very good, no.
All right, thank you.